Hey, we're back. Yeah, I see that. Awesome. Looks like got somebody new. Colt?
Yes, sir. Just got
Uh,
a license recently.
oh, cool. Are you South Dakota or are you Wyoming?
Wyoming.
Okay. Okay. Um, so I do mainly South Dakota. And I'm sorry, I'm walking around here. I do mainly, or I do South Dakota. So right now we're doing South Dakota purchase agreements. So I mean, are you gonna get your license in South Dakota, or are you just mainly gonna be?
No, it's a bit too far of a drive for me.
Okay, okay. Well, you can sure hang out and listen to the class. You're more than welcome to do that. But some of the forms probably won't make sense to you.
Hey, that's fair. I was told I needed to jump on this power start in first 90 days, I believe.
So
But
yeah, what we do is we go, we go over agency, which is different in Wyoming. All our forms are different than Wyoming. Probably the one thing that you might get out of it is market analysis or CMAs.
okay.
Um, that would be a good one to be at.
If you're just going over forms today, it's no problem. I've got a forms class on Friday that I'm going to anyways. Should be going over
Yep,
the same thing.
yep, that's
Sean?
that's what I would suggest doing that with Sean for Wyoming.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. But
All right.
yep,
Well,
you can sure hang out or you can do whatever you like.
thank you much. I'll probably hop
All
off then. Appreciate you.
right, sounds good. Hi,
Tatiana.
you're Tatiana. Okay. Good to meet you. What else? You have a book?
No.
You do have a book.
No,
Here, right here.
Oh,
Hi, I'm Dan.
Dan?
Yes.
Tatiana, nice to meet you.
I'm Chloe.
Chloe.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, I guess I do have a
We
book.
do have a book. What's your name on it?
Thanks.
All right. So, I'll go over a little bit. You're kind of jumping in on the middle of our, but you know what? We every 12 weeks or so we start over again.
So I'll do the middle and then I'll restart.
You do the middle and yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly what Dan did. So, well, you probably started at the beginning, didn't you? I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I started like at purchase agreements. I think I only missed the one. Oh,
Okay, and so with that being said, it doesn't hurt to take it a couple times.
Yes.
If you've got.
What I do is.
Yeah, that's what I was trying over. We're doing purchase agreements right now. So that's your agency paperwork. So, and if you've got stuff that you're getting ready to do, if you're working with we kind of got halfway through. Where did we stop at on purchase agreements?
then,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
See, that's why they keep track of me, right?
Mhm.
So that's why I'm gonna start. If you wanted to, I don't know what your schedule is. I don't know if you are gonna be in the office a lot.
I'll try, yeah, because, I'll try to be in the office.
If you're gonna be in the office a lot, I would be willing to meet with you one-on-one, or if you guys wanted extra help or whatever for agency.
Okay.
Because that's gonna be the most important thing for you right now is explaining how your clients are represented when you're meeting with clients.
Mhm.
So if you want to maybe set an appointment next week before our class, Monday, Tuesday, something like that, I could meet with you for an hour
Okay.
and we could either come in here or one of the other rooms. Okay, just let me know. Okay. All right, well, now I gotta get to the book here. So any questions on what we've gone over so far? with any of it, purchase agreements, agency, anything. I don't know where I'm at. Everybody's good? Did you do an open house?
No,
I know
no,
Chloe did, but,
no, I had an off week, I guess.
oh, did you? Okay,
No, no
All right.
open house.
all right. Tatiana, have you done any?
No.
You're just kind of
I'm just starting.
getting her going. All right, okay. So, let's go to page one again, or page one on the purchase agreement. So just one page back. We'll just hit a real highlight, okay? And then we're not gonna dwell on anything unless you guys have questions. Then we'll finish purchase agreement, then we're gonna hit on the other documents that you would need as a buyer or as you're representing a buyer, as you're going through the process, like addendums and contingency removals and those kind of things, all right? So we'll get through the buyer part of this by the end of class, okay? Again, the top, number one there on the purchase agreement is the earnest money, and we all, and Tatiana, I know you don't, and we'll hit it again, and I can go one-on-one with you on that. Because really, all you've missed was agency, and then we started purchase agreement. So you didn't really get in the middle, but kind of seems like it. Agency is a big one. So earnest money, again, what's earnest money?
Just the deposit that they put down.
Okay, and it's gonna show
Interest.
your interest and your seriousness. So the bigger the earnest money, the better, right? Right. So that's that. And then of course, number two is purchase price. So not necessarily the price that it's listed at, but the price that you're offering, right? So if it's listed at 400 and you're offering 350, you're gonna write 350 there. And then you're gonna write it out like a check, 350,000, right?
And if you're in a bidding war, you would just write 450 that down.
If it's listed at
Like, I'm
400.
just saying if you had multiple, if someone told you there was like multiple offer, you would just write that your offers for over then.
Well, that's a good question.
Installation.
If you're doing an escalation clause, yeah, they're very good. You can do an escalation clause. We have another form for that. We don't go over that. We just kind of go over the simple things in this class, but when you get to that point, you need an escalation clause, come see me and we'll do that. Or if you say, hey, Will, I'm in a multiple offer situation, what do I do? Or we're writing an offer and there's other offers. What can I do? And then we'll go over that, you know. But an escalation clause, you must have had one or something, huh?
Well, I bought them.
You bought a
houses before.
house?
First, I came from Seattle. There was a lot of bidding wars there.
Yeah, yeah. So
Escalation clause is anything over asking price?
So escalation clause would be, so example, we might as well hit it while we're talking about it. So let's say that your client, Dan, wants to write an offer on a property that has two other offers on it, okay? You're gonna talk with your client and you're gonna say, let's consider an escalation clause. So we could come in at asking price, right? So you're gonna come in at asking price. The escalation clause states, we're gonna go $1,050 over the next highest offer until we hit a cap of this. So example, if your client, it's 400,000, your client's willing to go 420. You can write it for 400, you could write it for 405, you can write it for whatever. But the escalation clause, the next person would push you. Like say the next guy, let's say he had 410. You would go $1,000 higher over that, or 1,050. That's what I do, is the 1,050. Because
Usually
I
$50.
seem to win those, yeah. So I go 1,050. Now you're at 411 and $50, right? That might win it. And if you get it, you got it. But if you, and then you're gonna put a cap on it, you're gonna say, we're not gonna go over 420. So if, let's say there's an offer that comes in at 420. Well, your cap was 420, so you're not gonna get it. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And then we would write, we've got a form for that. It's just really a cool form because it's fill in the blank. You don't have to remember any words or any way how to say it. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So that's a whole different mindset, you know. The clients get a little nervous sometimes. So we gotta discuss it with them.
That's probably only if you really want that house.
Yeah.
My question though, does the escalation, if you put in escalation clause, do you always start with the asking price? Or can they also start just a little lower if you don't know what the other
You
people?
can, yeah, you can start
You can
whatever you
still-
want.
okay.
Yep, yep. I figure. I guess you're right, whatever you wanna do. I always kind of think, well, you might as well start at asking price since. If there's 2 or 3 other offers,
Yeah.
you might as well just, I mean. They're not gonna be too many that are lower, I wouldn't think, but. The problem we had. You're gonna see that I always come up with, I always have stories, because I've done this for so long that I've got situations that. Come up in my head that I've dealt with in the past, but. One problem we had with escalation clause that I think is kind of. I don't want to say shady, but. In my mind, not right. Is. Some agents. If they see that your top is 420. They're just gonna counter offer you 420. I think that's kind of dirty myself.
That's totally. It should be legal. If
Should
it's
be.
not a real client, then we can't prove it.
Well, yes, you're exactly right. If the other person didn't push you to that,
Yes,
that's where it does say in that clause that we have to see that other
right,
offer. So we need to see the offer that's pushing us over.
yes.
But, and I think that's probably why they ended up putting that in there for all of them, is because some agents were just counter offering that high. Which I think is kind of crap, so. Just keep that in mind, right? So we covered multiple offers, because that's kind of what a multiple offer is, you know. It can push us to an escalation clause, but that statement there is basically saying that. The seller holds all the cards. They can do whatever they want. They can counter it. They can. Work on one deal while we sit, you know, they really can do whatever, you know. The only thing they can't do, I mean, they can, but. Is let ours lapse, because we have a time, right? We have, at the end of this, you're gonna see, we have a response time, and it goes past that response time, we don't have a valid offer, right? So. I'm not saying they can't go over that, but we're not obligated as buyer agents or buyers to buy that property. Now, I'll tell you a nice story when we get to that part, because I have a good story on that too. Talks about appraisal. Chloe, when do we have to get a appraisal, or when is it required that we have an appraisal done? When you do a mortgage, right? Most of the time when there's a cash offer, usually they don't do appraisals because they take time and they cost money, right? And most of the cash buyers don't really care. Every once in a while, they'll ask for one, but then we'll kind of walk them through the process and kind of tell them, you know, it might be best to save your money. That's what I tell them. But if they want it, absolutely.
Is appraisal usually paid by the buyer?
Yes. Yep. Number 5, financing again. This is where you're gonna put in the type of financing that they're approved for, and a letter from the lender that they're working with. And you're gonna write that lender's company down there as well. Homeowners insurance, number 6. this is, the insurability of the property. And it should say, it really should say, instead of insurance, it should say insurability. It does say insurability in the clause, but I think the heading should say insurability, because when people see that, they go, oh, yes, I can get home insurance, or no, I don't need home insurance. You always need home insurance if you've got a mortgage, right? And all this clause is the insurability of the property. So is the roof good? And none of you were in the lunch and learn yesterday. We had an insurance guy in here, and there was only about 5 of us. There's an insurance guy in here, and he was talking about the changes in the insurance industry that's happening, and they are really being strict about roofs on houses. And if a roof is over 10 years old, they're gonna start deducting insurability on that roof. That's coming. He said this year, it'll probably be industry wide, where, you know, if a roof is 10 years old, they're gonna say, all right, well, that's great. Yeah, okay, you probably had hail, you probably had some sort of damage living in this area, right? We're only gonna insure half of it. And for every year after that, that insurability goes down. So,
Which makes sense, because they've been getting creamed on these roofs.
oh yeah, the insurance companies, and that's what he said. And he also said that they're gonna start 1 to 2% deductibles too.
How is it actually established, if it's insurable? I mean, I kind of never thought about it. Because when I bought house here, my insurance is through Casco. It's not even local. They just asked me some questions. They never saw the house. Nobody ever came. So how is it in Dakota specifically?
Well, that's up to the insurance company.
Okay.
So if that insurance company says, Tatiana, yeah, it's great, we're gonna insure you, we're gonna insure the house, no problem, you're good.
Just I never thought that some house
Yeah.
may not be insurable.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and the big ones are, well, and all the houses, everything's in a big old central database now.
Hmm.
So if you work with Safeco, and then so your house is with Safeco, and you're selling it, and the guy that's buying it's with State Farm, the State Farm guy can type in your address and can see that you've done a hail claim or a new roof,
Oh,
or
yes.
they all know. So it's all, you can't hide like you used to be able to. You know, 20, 30 years ago, you used to be able to say, oh, yeah, we did the roof. And you take their word for it, because one insurance company didn't have the ability to talk to the other one. Now they do. So you can't really hide anymore. So with that said, I always tell my clients, if you're gonna get a hail claim, and that insurance company is writing you a $30,000 check, you better make sure that you fix your stuff. Because what do they do? I mean, are you familiar with what insurance does?
As far as getting your new roof,
Well, they give you your money, right? But they only give you part of your money
oh, until
until the work's done,
okay.
and then they give you the depreciation, they call it. So if it's a $50,000 claim, they might pay you 35. You do the work, then you turn in the receipts, and they say, all right, we'll give you your other 15. And I think they hedge their bet, you know what I mean? They want to say, we're gonna give him 30,000. And I hope that he doesn't fix it. Because,
Then they get to keep
Same
it.
with cars, right?
Same.
Lots of people just keep the money and.
yeah. Well, what happens if you go to sell it now? So you go to sell your house and you didn't fix it, they're gonna say, well, Dan. They're gonna say, you got paid. We paid, your insurance company paid you on this roof, and I see you didn't get it done.
But they know part 2 never happened, so.
Yep,
Okay.
and now the guy that's buying your house is saying, hey, they're not gonna insure my roof. Because you never fixed it, can you fix it? And you're gonna go, crap, I don't have $30,000.
35.
Right, so it's kind of a problem. It's kind of a problem,
Yeah,
so, yeah, and I've run into it, I haven't run into it lately, I think people are getting, I think the dollar amounts are so big. That I think they realize that, wow, we could really get caught here if we don't follow through and fix our stuff.
but that's why the insurability, part of the reason why the insurability is.
That's a very good reason for it, yeah. And then personal property is your bill of sale. It's the items that are removable from the property that you are leaving. So what example of what those would be, Chloe?
Like fridge, stove. Like that.
Fridge, stove, washer, dryer, window coverings. Shed, if your shed's not attached to the ground. Yep, those kind of things.
Piano that you can't move.
Piano you can't move, probably not. So I'm glad you said that. So probably not. Big old fancy riding lawnmower that costs $3,500. Probably not. Cause you don't want that appraiser to see that. You don't want the appraiser to go, a big one is hot tubs.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you got a brand new hot tub that you paid 15 grand for. And now you're gonna sell your house and you don't wanna move it, cause it's harder than a piano probably. A lot of people will leave their hot tub. Well, the appraiser's gonna come in and, okay, you paid 400,000 for this house. And that hot tub's going with it, so he's gonna go, that's a pretty expensive hot tub. We're gonna take that $15,000 hot tub off the top of the appraisal because
It's a hot tub.
it's a hot tub. And I think that you're buying this house mainly because it's coming with a $15,000 hot tub. And the bank wants to give you a mortgage or give you a loan on the house and the property, not the hot tub.
Mm.
So how do you get around that? You do a separate bill of sale. If they're leaving the hot tub, you do a separate bill of sale where you give them a little bit of money for the hot tub. You know what I mean? That's how I would do it. Pay them $100 for the hot tub, write a bill of sale. I don't care if you give them $100 or not, but do it to make it look like that's what's happening.
I never thought about it.
Yeah,
I didn't think, I never thought that it could actually make the appraisal different because of if it's not in a separate.
Yep. I've had that happen. And it's been a while, but I have had it happen.
I was just thinking that, you do that walkthrough right before you go close and they're like, not everything's moved out of here.
Right.
We don't want it, no.
And, you can also say, hey, is the hot tub included? Nope. No, are you fibbing to them? Yeah, you are.
Because nobody's gonna know it on that.
No, the appraiser's gonna come in, he's gonna appraise it, he's gonna see the hot tub and might ask.
And you're like, nope.
But in that second case, when they're not leaving it, but maybe you wanted it, but at least can the customer at least, the buyer ask for them to make it looking nice? Cause I have a friend who bought a house before and she saw the hot tub is included, whatever they were talking with their agent. And then, when they already bought it, it was gone and they left such an ugly space, like.
Oh, I see.
Ripped it out, it was like
They-
something's missing,
Right.
but the bed cement and stuff, I mean, it
Yeah.
was, and I don't know, they had some feud about it, but I don't know how it ended up.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
What do we
So
do?
they're taking it and then they leave the big spot there where the hot tub was and it's all corroded and messed up, and the seller probably didn't know what it looked like.
So is it negotiable too, like?
Well,
You know, if you're taking it, can you bring it up to the state?
yeah, you can ask. You should probably ask. After the fact, it's gonna be kind of hard to get them to do anything. But on the walkthrough, so you do a walkthrough. And look at that, number 10, walkthrough. That's where we left off, so perfect segue into walkthrough. So in a walkthrough, you're gonna do a walkthrough 48 to 24 hours before the closing, depending on when the client leaves, right? So if you're or not the client, the seller. So let's say the seller gets everything out, they call you up and they say, hey, Chloe, just to let you know, we got everything out. You guys can do the walkthrough whenever you're ready. So you go over that night and you do the walkthrough, and it's, let's say it's 2 days before closing. And the place isn't how your client really wanted it. It should be clean. So as a seller agent, you say, you know what, clean the house. Don't take things that you said you were gonna leave. So if you're gonna leave the hot tub, make sure the hot tub's there. If you're gonna leave the stainless steel fridge, make sure that the stainless steel fridge is there, the one that you saw in the walk, when you bought the house or when you put the offer in. If it's a fridge that's changed out, or a lesser quality, call them out on it. We've had that happen. We had a really nice stainless steel fridge with water dispenser and ice and all that kind of stuff. We did the walkthrough, and there was a crappy fridge in there that they had in the garage that he used for his beer fridge, right? And that was in place. And we called the other agent and we said, what happened to the fridge that was there? Oh, he decided he wanted to take it, but he left you the other one, Ron. We said, either buy us a fridge that was like the nice one that you had in here, or you bring this one back, we're not closing. They brought that one back. So that's how you remedy that. You hold off closing.
In the case if the buyer is not present, so if you do not personally do the walk-in, can you ask the real estate agent to do it for you? Or if you don't do it, then is it automatically like, well, you didn't see it, you had the chance? How is, because I bought house here without seeing it from out of state, so it's like a cat in a sack, with the surprises.
Yeah, you can definitely ask your real estate, if you're the buyer.
Yes.
The buyer to ask your real estate agent to go do it. Absolutely, and then you as the real estate agent are their representative, right? So you're gonna walk through. Now you better make sure that you really gotta make sure that you're very detailed if you're doing it for them. Now, if you're with them, you can point a few things out and they're gonna look. I mean, they're 24 hours from owning a house. They're gonna make sure everything works, right? Now, so I said you're gonna make sure that if something isn't right, correct, you're gonna hold up closing. I kind of misspoke on that. You're gonna suggest to your buyer that they hold up closing. It's always up to the client, right? So let's say they switched out the fridge, or the house maybe wasn't as clean as they thought it should be. You're gonna ask them, okay, I understand that. Yeah, it's not as clean as it probably should be. Do you want to hold up closing and have them come back and clean it, or hire somebody to clean it? A lot of times the client's gonna go, no, it's not that bad. Let's just close. I'm gonna clean it anyway. Those kind of situations happen a lot where they're not very happy with something, but it's not worth it to them not to close.
So what about like if they're like, What about, I just get a professionally clean myself and you guys give me $500?
So there you go. Very good. You can do that too. I had one. I had one, beginning of the year that was like that and it was. I've been working with these people for a long time. And they were buying a pretty high dollar house. It was about $800,000 house and, we did the walkthrough and the wife was not there. The husband was there. And the husband's mom was there. And we walked through and yeah, it wasn't great. It looked like there were some things that they forgot to wipe down and things like that, but he said, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I'm good. And we left. Okay, everything was great. See you tomorrow. Have a good night. About an hour and a half later, I get a phone call from the husband and he goes, Will, she's just not happy. I told her, what everything looked like. In fact, she's kind of pissed. And I'm thinking, great. And that's not what you want to hear the night before closing, right? And I go, well, what can we do? It is kind of a hard thing because you're on the phone, you can't see them. And your first reaction is, yeah, you did the walkthrough, but you just kind of take a deep breath and you're like, all right, well, what can we do? What's wrong, first of all? What didn't she like? She wasn't even there. That's what I'm thinking. She wasn't even there, but what did she want? So we ended up, long story short, I called, they said it wasn't clean. I called the other agent and I told her that. Depends on who you're dealing with, right? On the other end, you can have somebody that agrees with you and is cool, or you can have somebody that is a real bear, right? She was pretty okay. And we ended up giving them $500 so they could hire a cleaner. And we split it, 250. And we just did it. I was making a good commission, so I just did it. So everybody's happy. Now, do I think that they hired somebody? I don't think they hired anybody because I know her and she's a neat freak. And I know she did it herself. I know her and her mother-in-law came in and cleaned it. But
they were
Yeah.
happier cleaning it for money.
Yeah.
yeah, they were cleaning up for money. Yep. So walkthroughs, most of the time, 90% of the time, the walkthroughs go fine. They just want to make sure they're out of the house. I mean, that's half the battle. There's a lot of times where you show up to the walkthrough and the people, Craig, when he was on my team, he showed up to a house like 3 hours before it was in the morning. I think they were closing at 11. They did the walkthrough at 8 a.m. because the people said, well, we're not finished getting out. They walked to the house and the guy was still in bed.
Oh, geez.
So you're gonna run into that crap too, I'll tell you that. That's pretty bad. So, and then I think Craig and the other agent ended up moving stuff out. It was just
Oh, yeah, that sounds
ridiculous.
terrible.
Yeah, it was horrible. So you just get some people that are, and I'll tell you, the lower the price of the house,
The more.
the more that's gonna have, the
Mhm.
more problem. If you've got high dollar houses, you might run into the cleanliness thing like I did, but you're not gonna run into too many where the people are still there sleeping.
It wasn't a rental. It was sold.
No, it was the guy lived there.
It's just like,
The guy lived there. It was just horrible. So walkthroughs, if you have a walkthrough sheet, I don't know if Matt has one.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. Maybe.
If you have a walkthrough sheet, use it. Especially for the first few years that you're doing this. Now I have it in my head, which probably isn't great. I'm older now, so maybe I should use a sheet. But, so you've got kind of a list of what to go through, make sure the water's on and the electric's on and things like that, That's a whole different thing. The utilities are a whole different animal. Make sure that your clients, if you're working with the buyer, make sure that they call the utility companies to put it in their name at closing. Because the worst thing in the world is when you have a Friday closing and your clients didn't put the utilities in their name. And come Friday evening, when they close and they come to the house, and they turn the electric company pushes the button and turns the electric on because they had put it in their name by end of close on Friday or the end of business on Friday. Now you're going through the whole weekend without electric. Not good. And yes, I've had that happen. I had the electric company pull up when I was doing the walkthrough on a Friday morning. We were doing the walkthrough. We were closing at like 1 o'clock. And my first time home buyer, she's excited, just couldn't wait. Her mom was there and she was showing her what she was gonna do. And I'm just kind of standing there listening to it all. And I look out the window and here pulls in a Black Hills Energy truck. And I looked at her and I go, did you switch did you put the utilities in your name? Oh, I forgot. Yep, I'm gonna do that as soon as closing. And I go, well, they're here to shut off the electricity. And I went out and luckily the guy that did it was a friend of mine. And I didn't know he was I knew he worked for Black Hills Energy, but I didn't know he shut people's power off. So anyway, he just looked at me and he goes, what, she didn't call and get it in her name? And I go, nope. He said, she's gonna do it now. And he goes, well, it's kind of tough spot for me because I have these orders and I have to do it. He goes, but what I'll do, I've got about 15 of them. It'll probably take me about an hour or so. So I'll put this one at the bottom. And if she does it right now, they'll probably call me and remove it. So they did. So it was luckily that, because they won't come out on Saturday. They won't turn it back on till Monday. So big lesson learned. Make sure that you do it. Number 11, seller's disclosure. So you all know when we do a listing, the seller fills out a property disclosure. And we just had a conversation before the class. They did a new property disclosure here. July 1st was a new one that they brought out. That's statewide South Dakota codified law form. The property disclosure. Property disclosures in South Dakota are uniform, doesn't matter if you're in Black Hills, MLS, Rushmore, Sioux Falls, it's the same throughout the state. So make sure that you have the new form. Now we're moving everything out of Dotloop that is old. So Chris is doing that right now. But make sure that, not all officers are like us, right? A lot of the offices, they don't have anybody do that kind of stuff. Heck, I got one, well, it's a 5-page disclosure now. So the one that I have in here is old. There used to be a 5-pager, went to a 7-pager. Now it's a 5-pager again. But a 5-page, it's smaller, the font's smaller and everything, and then it added 2 more questions to it. But make sure it's the right one. Okay, and he'll go over it in like our Tuesday meetings and stuff. But make sure that your client, the buyer, looks at the disclosure. If you know, as an agent, when you're working for the seller, you cannot fill out the disclosure, right? You cannot do that. That is the seller's responsibility. You can help them understand questions. If they have a question about something, you can definitely help them through that, but you cannot answer it for them, and definitely do not fill it out. Okay,
I have a quick question.
yeah,
So I have one of Matt's clients tonight. I'm showing a couple houses for him since he's out of town. And all the property disclosures that I printed off are different. Does that interfere with anything? Like, they look different. They are all not the same. Like, there's one with like little bubbles, one that just has lines, and there's one that has like a table. I have them in my car and I could show you.
I would love to see that.
Cause they're all different. And is that something, like, when I'm showing a client, I printed it out for myself to make sure that like I hit everything I need to. Is that something that like I can just give him if he's like actually interested in?
Oh, yeah,
this? Just
yeah.
give them that?
Yeah, I give, so typically when I show a property, there's no right or wrong. All agents do it differently, but what I do is I print out the MLS sheet. So it's got all the information about the house, measurements and the write-up and all that kind of stuff. And then I go into associated documents in the MLS and I print out the documents. Now, I'll print out the disclosure, I'll print out the bill of sale. If there's a survey, like how the house sits on the lot, I'll print that out. Covenants, I don't print out because they're too long. And then if there's other things that are pertinent, like if it has a foundation problem and there's a foundation report, it's not too long, I'll print that out too. And I'll give that to the buyer.
Okay, so they can have the MLA.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And I printed that out too, so.
Yep. So you can give them all that stuff.
Don't you have to print MLS though, so it doesn't have the agent?
You don't
just
have to.
filter them. You can see like the agent's remarks or whatever on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now. Yeah, yeah, there's some agents that might not like that, but I do.
Okay.
I mean, you want to disclose everything to your client, right? Yeah, so I've done this for 20 years. And you can print, there's different things that you can click to print. You can print it that it doesn't have the other agent's name on it and probably would take agent only remarks off. You can do that.
I was just thinking, cause, I was kind of struggling with it, cause I know Don showed me how to do that. And then, when Chris had his open house, it didn't have a lockbox. It was like, go ahead and enter with code 1, 2, 3, 4 for whatever it was. I was like, yeah, I don't think the public should be seeing that.
Yeah,
And for the life of me, I couldn't remember what she showed me for
Yeah.
how to get rid
yeah,
of
that's
it. So-
probably a good point, yeah.
So I just kind of put some paper over my copy.
Agents shouldn't put that in agent only remarks, number one.
Oh, yeah.
So don't do that.
Yeah.
If you have a contractor box on there and you don't have a lockbox,
Yeah.
just have don't
Just
say,
call
hey,
me.
code 1, 2, 3, 4, don't do
I
that.
was kind of curious too, because I've called up and just, like other agents and just said that interested in looking, and they're like, oh, okay, and just give me all the information. And I feel like no one checks. I could be like whoever off the street, basically.
Yeah.
So,
They don't know you.
that's, yeah. Yeah.
You're new, they don't know who you are.
Exactly. So,
Damn, Dan from Keller Williams.
yeah, sure.
I mean,
Let him in.
yeah, so, yeah, it's real trusting,
Yeah.
around here. It really is. And, you're right. I mean, I've seen that where they have the code in the agent only remarks. It's like, well, what if I print out the MLS and give it to my client? They can
That's
show up
right.
after dinner and go and look again.
That's it, yeah, like, why I wasn't sure, if we should filter it all the time or stuff, you should just read it.
You know what? I never filter it.
Okay,
So maybe that's my bad.
well, I don't know how to filter it.
Well,
Because she
You
showed me.
can figure it out. You can just
But then you start feeling like I'm just wasting forever on this.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
That's kind of why, I just print it.
Yeah.
Because usually you're in a hurry,
yeah.
you just click, print, okay, now I'm ready, you know? Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I told Chris this morning, he was in my office and asked me a question. And he goes, because he was asking me, hey, there's a lot of agents doing this. When you're signing stuff, maybe let me know how many agents are doing this. And then he goes, well, you know what? I think one of them's me, because I think I just did this. Because he did whatever he was telling me to watch out for, he did it. Because I caught him on it. Because I said, well, I think I just signed one for you yesterday. It was like that. And I said, kind of do what I say, not what I do, right? And and I do a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't, but you've done it for so long, you kind of used to doing it certain ways. So. But I'm a lot better than I used to be. And now I'm the responsible broker, so I better do it right, right? I'm getting better. Okay, any questions on disclosures? We good on that? Just make sure that they understand it too, because when you're sitting there writing an offer, because that's when the disclosure is going to come up, is when we're writing an offer. I usually, for first time people, or most people I have come into the office, and I sit down with them and we pull it up on the computer and we just go through it. And I'll give them the disclosure and I'll say, hey, while I'm kind of getting things ready here, you guys look at the disclosure, make sure everything is right. If you got questions, let me know. And usually they do have a few questions. I answer them and we move on, because they might not know what something meant. That's mainly the questions. It's not, it's like, well, what do they mean by an encroachment? Not everybody knows what that means, right? So you will answer that question. If there are questions that are in the disclosure that they want more clarification on, there's that line there where it says it is contingent or is not contingent. So you're going to say is contingent on the following items, and I usually say 2 calendar days. And then I will write section 2, number 3, please explain, or whatever that is, right? And if there's too many items to list on that line, then you list it in other provisions at the end of this. Usually, any questions, technically, if you say 2 calendar days of acceptance, they don't have to answer those questions until 2 calendar days after the offer's been accepted. Usually it comes back to you on a counter offer, because usually they're going to counter offer. And they'll usually answer those questions in the counter offer. So we have those, most of the time we have an answer before we have a contract accepted. Lead-based paint. So when does it require to do a lead-based paint form?
Before 1978, when the house was built.
Yep.
Is it prior or prior in? So
Well, that's a good question. I had a guy in here that argued with me one time. If it's 78, personally, I have him do it. Now this says, because he argued with me, he says it says prior to 78. I was always taught that 78 was the deadline. So if I get a house that's 1978, I'm going to have them do a lead-based paint form. So if I'm listing a house 1978 or older, I'm going to have them do a form. Now, if it's 1979, you don't have to do it. But he was arguing, well, it says prior to 78, so if 78, they're putting themselves out there as a liability or he was trying to say stuff and it's like. I wanted to say it's a lead-based paint form, I'm not downing the lead-based paint form, but. If you look at a lead-based paint form. What do they say?
It may contain lead-based
It
paint,
may contain lead-based paint,
it may not.
but as sellers, we have never tested for it. We have no knowledge that there is, and we've never tested for it.
It's a big nothing. kind
So
of.
it's a huge nothing. It's just saying that. Basically, it's saying there could be, this house was built in 1978. They were still selling lead-based paint in some stores. I mean, they quit making lead-based paint way before 1978. But they put it to 78 because there are some places that still stock lead-based paint. So somebody somewhere could have bought lead-based paint and used it in the construction of their house. So that's why they did it. So nobody, I have never ran into a house that has said, yes, we have lead-based paint. And we have tested, or even no, we don't have lead-based paint, and yes, we have tested for it. I've never even seen that. So it's usually no. So that's why I don't think, but if it's 1978 or older, I would have one. It's required to. The year of 78,
So it's just basically a paper, nobody like, buyer doesn't have to test or anything, I mean, it's just for knowledge.
Well-
It may be there.
we are going to, when we get done with this, which we will, there is a lead-based paint form in here and I'll show you. But yes, your buyer does have the option to test for it. But again, never had that happen. You know, I had one kid one time that said he was a first time home buyer and he said, yeah, I want to test for it. And I was like, okay, you know, I was like, all right, but his dad was with him, his dad was sitting in with him, and he goes, no, you don't want to test for it. He goes, it's kind of expensive, and then he says, what are you gonna do if they find it?
Yeah. Don't swallow it.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's kind of it, so no, I've been really close to having to order it, but never have. Now, I have talked to inspectors that have done lead-based paint testing. Because it's been asked, but I've never done it. Okay, inspection of the property. Number 13, this is, in my opinion, the most important part of our purchase agreement. And the reason it is so important is because this is the part of the agreement that your client can walk away from the contract. If there's something major that happens or something major that's found in the inspection, they can walk away from this contract and not lose their earnest money. All right, now why do I say it's important? It's because there's timelines attached to it. Okay, and if we miss those timelines, whose fault is it?
Ours.
It's our fault, right? So this offer is or is not contingent upon buyer at the buyer's expense obtaining a property inspection. If your client wants a property inspection, you're going to check the is box. These inspection options will be completed and written notice of the results given to the seller or seller's agent within blank business days. And I almost, know, I wonder if it says calendar days now too. I don't know if it does. They've changed this so many times. Business days. So we're just gonna go with business days here. You'll check the new one when you look at .loop, okay? What does yours say?
12 business days.
So yours says business days too, okay. Cause sometimes they flip between business and calendar, so. Anyway, so there's quite a difference between business days and calendar days, right? So you gotta make sure that you know which one you're dealing with. So anyway, I say 12 business days. You can put whatever days are in there. Is yours filled in?
From the class with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay,
I filled it in myself.
okay. I usually do 12.
Never seen 12, usually it's like around only 5 days or all I've seen before.
Well,
Really quick for some reason.
we're gonna start doing 12.
Okay.
I mean, you can do whatever you want, but here's the thing. You have to get it ordered. You have to get the inspection done, the results back, and you have to do a contingency removal form to ask for anything that you want fixed over to the seller. So depending on your inspector, how quick they can get over there, right? That's gonna be a big thing. So if you cut yourself short and say 7 business days, you're gonna be, kind of stuck.
And you get the crummy inspector that has no business.
Yeah, you could, for sure. And you don't want to do that. And it's very, very important because if you miss that 12 business day, now your client has lost their ability to negotiate. They have to continue on with the deal. They can't walk away from the deal. And that seller doesn't have to do anything.
Unless they buy a boat and ruin their financing and.
Unless they buy a boat already put in their finance, and that's kind of crummy, but yeah. So very, very, very important. So what I do, and I know, if you guys went through class with Carol or did you do online? Did you do online too? What'd you do?
I did online, but it was like Colorado Real Estate School, and then I had whatever the Keller Williams book was for South Dakota here, so.
Okay. Carol teaches, I don't know, does she stress it? Did you go through this? I know you went through.
For some reason, I just don't remember that from the class.
Yeah, she might not get into it.
Yeah, I think we didn't do the details on the amount of things, but
Yeah,
it makes sense what you say. I mean, I've never seen it that long when I was purchasing, but it's definitely better.
so what I do is I tell my client, so we're going through this part and I tell my client, hey, do you know a home inspector? If they know a home inspector, if they're, maybe they're good friends, a home inspector, or maybe their cousin or whatever is a home inspector. But I ask them that, and if they say yes, I say, well, great, who is it? And here's what we're gonna do, because I'm never gonna push who I use on somebody unless they ask me to. Right? So, and where I was going with Carol probably teaches you to go give them 3 names.
Yes, she does. Yeah, she stresses that out.
I know,
She does never suggest just one.
Carol is a commissioner and she's by the book, right? So this is where I kind of differ from Carol a little bit, and she's awesome.
But
So-
you can always give 3 names and just say, like, I personally know
You sure
this
can.
one, but it's still probably better
Yeah.
not to push one.
Yeah. So I always say, well, if you don't, I have a guy that I like. Are you okay with me doing that? And I've never had, everybody's got issues, right? Everybody has an off day. I use Bob Cronin at Pathfinder. I have, Bob's 95% of the time, Bob does a fantastic job and my clients are happy. Every once in a while, you get somebody that, that guy doesn't know what he's doing, blah, 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 or he missed this or missed that. Well, I think they're just not happy with anybody usually, but, anyway, that's who I do. And if they tell me yes, as soon as that is accepted, I'm dropping Bob an email. I sent him a text and I sent him an email. I said, hey, I'm sending you a new order. Here's the deal. Here's my client's names. Or I say our client's names because now they're his client too, right? So here's our client's names. Here's their contact. Please give them a call, set up the time. That's what we do. And I do that because number one, I don't want my client dragging their feet and waiting 3 or 4 days to order a home inspection. Because it's my butt's on the line, right? Because if we miss that date, it comes back to me, right? Or it comes back to you. Doesn't really go to the buyer. Because we're the expert, right? And we're the ones that are guiding them through this process.
So you can see the dragging the feet, you just dropped off your earnest money, now you gotta pay for the inspection. It's like,
Yeah,
that's why you gotta kind of do it for them.
yeah, you gotta do it for them. And that's why I do it. I don't want to miss that date. And have I missed dates? Yeah. And have I missed dates? I mean, I missed a date last year. Which shocked me, it's like, how the heck did I miss that? But I missed it. So it happens to everybody, and it'll probably happen to you. And just hope that if it does happen to you, or when it happens to you, it's not going to be a financial burden on you. But one time that both times worked out, thankfully, but the very, very first time it happened to me. And I was in the business about 3 years, and I was doing a deal and got the inspection done, and client said, well, we want to ask this, this, and this. So we did it, I sent it over to the other agent, and she called me up and she goes, hey, just to let you know, you missed the date. And I'm like, what? And I'm telling this story for a reason. Because if you look down here, it says 12, and then at the bottom it says 5, right?
Mhm.
Or yours isn't filled in.
Mhm.
Mine is. I do 12 and 5. So the second line for business days is the amount you're giving the seller to respond to our requests, right? How I was taught way back when, and a lot of agents were taught this, is those two numbers, you add them together and you have that amount of time for our inspection. No, you don't. You have that first number that you put in to get that request over to the seller. The seller then has the 5 business days to get it signed, or say they're going to do it, or hey, we're not going to do this, but we'll do these things. Yeah, so basically counter offer us, right? But I thought, oh, you add those two together. So I was wrong. And it was a lesson. And what happened was my clients, they asked for some things, wasn't horrible, but she said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my clients, I'm going to tell my clients that you missed the date, but I'm going to see if they'll still do the things that you asked, which was super nice, right? So whenever somebody misses it on me, and I've had it where on the other side where I'm representing the seller, I do the same thing because I just thought, I always remembered how nice that was. And they actually did, like half of the things we requested, which was really nice. But when you have to call your client up and you have to say, I missed the date, that's a little embarrassing if you're the professional, right? I've had it. Make sure there's nobody else on. I've had it twice where the Kaler team missed it. And I was the seller. And that was kind of fun. Where I get to say, I missed the date. That was fun. All right, any questions on inspections? Everybody understands that? You know how important it is now? Very important.
Mhm.
All right. Number 14 is the well and septic. If you're selling a house or buying a house that has a well or a septic system, we're gonna wanna ask that that septic be pumped, inspected, and certified to the current county specifications. And then your lender is probably gonna ask to have a well water test done. And I'm going through that right now, which is an absolute pain in the butt. If you ever do a VA loan, especially with an out of town lender, it is miserable because there are things that they want nationally tested for that apparently they don't test for here. And I have a heck of a hard time getting it. And I keep telling the lender, we don't do that here. He goes, I need it in writing from the water association, not you. I'm like, okay, and nobody will get back to anybody, it's just a pain in the butt. So, water tests, if you're buying a home that is on association water, maybe do your due diligence and ask for a updated water test and get that to that lender right away. Because then they'll tell you if it's good or not, and if not, at least you have a little time to get them what they need. Number 15 is home warranty. And this is just kind of a I call it a cover your butt statement. It's just kind of saying that, hey, there are home warranties available. That your buyer can purchase at any time, even after they buy the house, they can buy a home warranty. I use home warranties in negotiating sometimes when there are big items on a home inspection that, say, example, a furnace. Let's say you're buying a house that was built in 1990 and it's still got the original furnace in it. In my brain, 1990 isn't that long ago, but it actually is in furnace life, right? And but it's running, it's working. You do the home inspection and the home inspector says furnace checks out good, but it's 35 years old and it's towards the end of its usefulness or useful life or however to put it. And that's how they state it. So what we do, it's hard to ask the seller, right, to buy the brand new furnace for the buyer because it works, right? They're not gonna do that. They're not gonna spend $7,000 on a new furnace. So what I do is I ask them to purchase a 1-year home warranty for my client, which is about $500, and it's gonna cover hot water heater, furnace, appliances, and a whole list of other things, your central air, and all those things. So that's how I use a home warranty. I don't do it on all of them, but when you have an old furnace, things like that, it's well worth it. And I have had it pay off. I had a guy that it conked out after he bought it, about 30 days after he bought it, and he got a new furnace. They fought. The home warranty place fought it. They said, well, we should have never, this thing was old, your inspector should have seen that. Well, we knew it was old, that's why we bought or had it purchased for us, Well, we're not gonna cover it. And my guy was mad. He called me and he was mad. And I said, well, I'll take care of it. So I called the lady, and there was a lady that came into our office meeting and she was pushing home warranties, and that's who we used. So I used. And I said, no, your company, you just came in 2 weeks ago and your company's saying they're not gonna cover it. She goes, I'll take care of it. And within a half an hour, they called my client, said, yeah, we'll take care of it.
Are you using a specific home warranty that you offer to clients and like the Keller Williams, do you offer the same company insurance, no? The client
We can pick whoever, if that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have, Keller Williams doesn't have a specific home warranty plus. Now, we're like anybody else. I mean, I can't remember their names. America Home Shield. There was one that was 210 warranty, I think it was called. That we've got,
Client can also find
client can do
their
whatever they
own,
want.
like if they buy anything.
Yep, yep. You could Google best home warranty and you get 4 or 5 of them and you can pick whatever. And they're all pretty comparable. Yeah. Okay, skip a bunch of these. I must have. I did. I turned a big old 2 pages. All right. Number 16 is improvement location exhibit. Do you know what that is? That's a survey. So an improvement, and this is how I explain it. An improvement is anything built on a piece of property, on land. So, for example, an improvement would be your house, your garage, if it was a detached garage, a shed, concrete. Anything that's put on your property is called an improvement. And a location is where it is, right? So basically it's how your house sits on the lot. And that's really good for you to know as a homeowner, because they're gonna measure the corner of your house to the lot line. And they're gonna say, all right, you're 16 feet 3 inches to your lot line. Or from the corner to the front of your lot line and the back of your lot line. All around your house. And property in town, mainly in town, is gonna have easements. Setbacks. You ever heard that word, setbacks? So there are rules that state you can't build a structure, a permanent structure in a setback. So, or an easement, excuse me. So you might have a 5-foot easement all around your property that you don't even know that it's there unless you look at a survey. But those are usually used for utility. So you've got your electric, your gas, your water, and they run underground, right? And they're in this 5-foot area. And those are used for those companies. If there was a problem with your service, they could come in and they could legally get in that area of your property and do what they need to do to fix whatever they need to fix, right? So you can't build a shed, and a lot of people do. A lot of people put a shed right in the back corner of their lot, right? Well, you're taking a chance, because if something was wrong with your water and your water line broke, and that's where it broke, it was underneath your shed, you'd have to move the shed, right? If it was concrete, you'd have to bust up that concrete more than likely. Sometimes they can burrow under it and do some work, but if you have to move it, that's your responsibility. It's also going to be good for knowing where your lot line is. So if you're going to put in a fence, you have a pretty good idea of where your lot ends, right? I always ask for one. So when you're doing an in-town lot, just ask for the improvement location exhibit. If you're buying a property outside of town that is bigger, like a acreage lot, 3 acre, 5 acre, 10 acre, I would do a boundary survey or ask for one at least, because you know, when you're owning a big property in the hills, you wanna know where your boundaries are, right? We're always gonna ask the seller to pay for it, and we're gonna make them negotiate it. They don't wanna pay for a boundary survey, or if they wanna us to split it with them, well, we're gonna make them counter offer us, okay? If you've got questions on that when you're writing up, I mean, if you're just doing a regular house in town, improvement location exhibit, have the seller pay 100% of it, then you're good. But if you're doing other properties, come see me and we can work through it. Number 17 is tax proration. So who knows how taxes are paid in South Dakota? Property taxes. In arrears, what does that mean?
Like,
Sometimes it feels like it's in our arrears, right?
yeah, like half a year, like not monthly, but just like a portion.
Well, that's not really what arrears means.
Okay.
But you are right, that's how they are paid, right? But arrears means they're paid the year before, or the taxes that we're paying this year were for last year.
Mhm.
That's what arrears means. So we're not paying as it's going. So example. You all have mortgages, right? You don't. So when your mortgage, you pay an escrow, right? So your escrow pays for your taxes and your insurance, okay? And your bank collects that, so you're gonna pay more than your actual payment because the taxes and insurance payments are in there too. So they take that, they put it aside, they put it in your account that they have for you, and when on April 30th and October 30th, when the taxes are due, that escrow is taken out of your account and paid to the county for your taxes, right? But those taxes that they're paying this year are for last year, they're for 2024, right? So taxes are gonna be prorated. So what we're asking in this, we're asking for the seller to, let's say we buy the house August 1st. Okay, so August 1st, we're closing on this house. Well, they've already paid that April tax payment, right? But they haven't paid the October one, correct? So they're gonna have to pay that one early. Understand? They're gonna have to pay, and it's all done at the title company. They don't have to run out and pay it. It's all done through their proceeds, if they have proceeds from their sale. But the title company will take that second half payment, and they're gonna pay that. Then, remember, we're in arrears. So what happens from January 1st to closing date? So January 1st, 25 to August 1st of 25. They lived in that property, right? So they own that property, so they're gonna have to give you, the buyer, credit or a prorated amount from the time they owned it, January 1st through closing date, and then they're gonna give that to you. And it's not a check, it's basically come off your closing costs, your buyer's closing costs. But it's money that you don't have to come up with as a buyer, right? And they're gonna give that to you in a credit. Then you are responsible for the 2025 taxes. And that's about the best explanation I can do. And I've explained it a lot, and so it in my head makes perfect sense now. But boy, if you're explaining that to a seller or a buyer, it's hard. I had a guy call me one time, a seller called me, and he says, I know I'm gonna get screwed on this. tax stuff. I know it, I know it, I know it. I go, no, here, and I explained. All right. Day of closing, he calls me up, and he goes, I told you I was gonna get screwed, and I go, oh, no, they did everything right. I looked at your closing statement, everything is exactly, and I had to explain to him again, finally you understood it. But it is screwy, and there's only about 6 or 7 states that do that, the way we do it. So if you're dealing with people coming in from out of state, and they're not used to that, takes a little bit of explanation.
But who is responsible for calculating all of that? I mean, is it,
Do you take the test?
I did, no, I
thought
did
the
take
title
the,
company
I
does.
did take the test, and we were practicing on it, but technically, does anybody like recalculate, verify? I mean, is it just?
The title company
I-
makes sure. Title company makes sure it's done. When I am, and I don't really do it as the buyer agent, but when I'm selling it, so when I'm selling your house, right? And I'm telling you, hey, Tatiana, this is how much you're gonna get back if we sell it for this much. This is gonna be your bottom line. This is how much you're gonna get. And it's an estimation, but I estimate it in there as well.
Yeah.
So I do that, and we'll talk about that when we start talking about sellers.
But yours is the estimate.
Mine's the estimate. The title company's the one that does, and they're really good. Our title companies are really good. Okay? So, and I am gonna check the box. If you look, the bottom line or the end of that says tax prorations will be based on, I always say, the most current county information. Unless there's 2 exceptions. I always check most current county information unless it's a new construction. So I'm gonna check the new construction estimate box there. You guys see that? I don't know if you guys have that up yours. All right. Because of the pay in arrears thing, a new construction property isn't gonna get fully assessed on taxes for a whole year after it's finished. So we can call the county and say, hey, we're paying 400,000, new construction, here's the address. What is your estimation of taxes when it's fully assessed? And they'll say $3,800. Okay, $3,800. So we're gonna have them prorate to $3,800 or prorate at $3,800. So it's like they paid $3,800 a year in taxes, even though they didn't. Because we want to get, as a buyer, we want to get more money because we're gonna have to pay that tax, right? So we're gonna ask them to prorate it. Now, a seller or a home builder is probably gonna counter that, or they're gonna fight it. So be prepared for that, because if they're only paying $600 in property taxes on a raw lot, they don't want to pay $3,800. They don't want to give us proration of $3,800. So, but we ask for it. That's our duty to do that. The other time that we would ask it is if you found that your property that you're buying is under a tax freeze. So a lot of times it's a person with a disability or elderly person that isn't paying as high taxes. And that, sometimes you'll look at it, it's a house that's been there for 20 years and they're paying $900 in taxes. Well, that there's something wrong there, right? And they're probably in a tax freeze. So you would call the county and see what the normal taxes would be, and then you would put that in the agreed amount. That's what I would do. Now, you don't have to do that. If you just want to keep it most current county information, well, If it's on a tax freeze, they're gonna base it on $600 or $900 or whatever those taxes were. And then your client's gonna end up paying more in taxes. And you better explain that to them, because when they, if you don't explain that to them and they got shortchanged on their taxes, they didn't get enough prorate, so now they're paying the grown-up rate, they're not gonna be happy. Some people make money and don't care. Some people have enough money and they don't care. But some people do. Even people that have money care. So don't assume that they're not gonna catch it, because they will. Questions on that? Kind of understand it a little bit? Enough to know that you're gonna ask me a question when it comes up. Also, above that, I kind of skipped this and I apologize. Above that it says any fuel, oil, or propane stored on the property. You see where it says that? Is that gonna be prorated or not prorated or removed? I always check the box, because I'm representing the buyer. I always check the box, will not be prorated or removed. I make them counter me on that. Now, you don't, if you're selling a property that has propane. I mean, if you're selling a Rapid City property, you don't have to check that box, because we don't normally have fuel oil. And we don't have propane usually in town. But if you're selling a property in Southern Hills, Hill City, Custer, Hot Springs, or selling something out in the boonies, they have propane because the natural gas doesn't come out there. So what we're asking them is, to, however it is when we buy it, we'll take it. If you just filled it full of propane, and then you're putting your house on the market, and we ask for it not to be removed or prorated, you're probably gonna counter offer us, right? Because you spent $2,000 on propane, and you don't want to give us $2,000 worth of propane, right? So it's up to them. That's how I do it anyway. Up to them to counter me. And I explain that to my clients, hey, who knows? Maybe they just filled it. Maybe they haven't. Maybe you will close and you'll get there and you'll be out of propane. Well, that's could be what happens. Right? Okay, questions? I'll get questions on that when you ever sell a propane house. All right, number 18 is possession. Possession and closing. I always put possession to go to the buyer the day of closing. Closing is going to take place on or before, and then that's when you're gonna put a closing date in there. And I usually do 30 to 45 days. I don't write 30 to 45 days on there. I put a date that's 30 to 45 days out. And we talk about it as I talked to my client about that. Okay.
I
You-
get a,
You really
it's a bell. Yeah, that's where I have those shows.
Yes, all right.
I'll send you pictures of those property disclosures.
Okay,
That's there.
we'll talk about it next week. We'll do that.
Thank you.
Yep. And then we're also gonna put in there who you want to do the closing. If you're going to Bell, you're probably gonna say Black Hills Title, right?
I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll ask you about that.
If you're gonna do it here, you've got Stodac, you've got Fatco, you've got, what's the three? And we get to ask for it. And if the seller doesn't want to close at those places, the seller will counter offer us, right?
It seems like it's always kind of listed in the MLS.
Yep, and if it's listed in the MLS, I just put that. I don't have a preference. I mean, all three of them in town do a fine job. If it's up to me, I'm probably gonna split it. Well, I try to even it out. I do. I mean, I get along with all of them. I think they do a great job. I probably have more closings with First American. But total preference. I know that there's offices that like to use Pennington, so it's doesn't matter. And I'm not one of those guys that's gonna say, no, you're closing here. If my client has a preference, then that's what we're gonna do. Okay. Do make sure that everybody, both buyer agent, seller agent, and lender, know who we're going with. Because total embarrassing when both title companies have an order. That's embarrassing.
Is that why they write in the MLS then?
That's why they
Okay.
do that now, yeah, because, geez, it used to be at least twice a year. One would order from this and one would order from that, or we'd order from here and the other agent would order from here. And it's like, oh man, that sucks, but now that's why they put it in here, so at least it's documented, right? Number 19 talks about default in the event that either party defaults. The laws under the state of South Dakota kick in, and you could lose your earnest money or get sued for specific performance, and that's the act of buying the house, right? They can't do both. They can't, if you back out of a deal and the seller keeps the buyer's earnest money, the deal's done, they're not gonna get sued. Okay. Seller concession, number 21, well, choice of law, I just said that, South Dakota law governs the transaction. Seller concession, so I don't know if how many houses you guys have bought, but it is kind of common for a buyer, especially first time homeowner, to ask for the seller to help with their closing costs. So seller to contribute $4,500 towards buyers allowable and not allowable closing costs. And I haven't done it in so long, so I can't even think of the wording. But anyway, they're asking, this is where they're asking that question. Hey, Mr. Seller, can you give us some money towards closing costs? I haven't done it in a long time. I really can't remember the last time I asked for closing costs. It hurts, especially in a multiple offer situation. The seller's not gonna take our offer if we've got, closing costs that we're asking for. Especially if the other one doesn't, right? I have a guy coming in 245, so I didn't know if that was him. So that's where we would ask for that. So you put a dollar amount, and I always suggest putting a dollar amount in. So that also says, or a percentage of the purchase price. A lot of people say, oh, 3%, ask for 3%. Well, no, give me a dollar amount. The lender will say that. Lender will say, well, ask for concessions because they need money. Ask for 3%. Well, no, you give me a percentage. Or you give me a dollar amount, not a percentage, right? So, I mean, on a 300,000, if they say 3% on a $300,000 house, that's $9,000. That's crazy. Have the lender, tell the lender, because the lender can adjust their rates. They can adjust their costs to help the client out. Don't put it all on the seller. And that's kind of the way I feel about that, so, instead of 9,000, how about we ask for 4,500? Why don't you help them out on the rest? That's kind of the way I put it, because I think $9,000 is just crazy. To ask a seller, I mean, they're paying a commission. And we're asking for a commission, right? We're asking for them to pay part of our commission, if not all of our commission. So they're getting nailed. So that's why I try not to do seller concessions, because it's kind of tough. But if my buyer needs it, you're gonna ask for it, right? Question on that? You kind of look like you had one.
I'm afraid to ask question.
No,
No, it's just, it's different from, like I said, I never worked in the area, but from what I've seen before, like in at least in Seattle, seller always, from what I knew, always paid for all closing costs, and percentage for the compensation for the agent was also always paid by seller. I've never heard buyer agent paying for buyer, so it's just super new to me. I don't even know how people ask, and I know that a lot of buyers do not want to pay.
Well,
Even
that
though
is,
we studied it the way you saying it, it's just it's so different from what I've been.
Did you ever sell in Washington?
No.
Okay, so this is-
I'm new to that.
You're
Perfect.
brand new to real
Yeah.
estate. So you are correct. The way that it used to
Used to
be,
be,
when you would do a listing agreement. If I was gonna sell your house, we would enter into a 6% listing agreement. Half would go to me and half would go to the other agent, right?
That's the only way
And
I
that's-
knew it, because
That's the way it was. Well, when this lawsuit happened last August,
it's recent.
that is when it stopped. Now, when we do a listing agreement, we're gonna work on my fee. Okay, Tatiana, I always ask for 3%, and we're gonna negotiate that out, but let's say we negotiated the 3%, so I got 3%. Now, are you going to offer a buyer agent fee to help sell your house? And if you agree to that, how much are you willing to go up to? And that's how we have it worded, up to. So let's say you say, well, I'd go up to 2.5. So we're gonna say up to 2.5. Depending on the offer we get, if we get a full price offer and they're not asking for any closing costs or anything like that, you're probably okay paying 2.5 to the other agent. Perfect. Well, they hit us low. We came in $30,000 low and they're asking for 5,000 in closing cost assistance. Well, okay, we'll do that, but we're not paying the buyer agent, right? And that's how we counter offer them. And it's kind of a segue into number 22. How much are we as buyer agents asking for that seller? So I always am going to ask for 3%. Unless it's a huge property. Or if I'm selling $1 million property and the agent on the other side says they're getting 2%. Well, 2% of $1 million's good enough. I'm okay with that. And if I know it, I'll put 2% in there. If it's a $300,000 property and they say, well, they're paying 2%. I'm still gonna ask for 3 and make them counter. If I write a good offer, maybe they'll do it. And if they don't, if they come back at 2, remember when we did the buyer agent agreement, then I'm gonna talk to my buyer and say, all right, I'll take 2.5. Would you be willing to pay that other half? A lot of times they will. But that's why we practice, right? That's why we practice on each other, and I'm gonna do my presentation to you. And that's how I talk to my buyers, right? So, and you want to get away from you wanna act like you know what you're talking about, and that's why that's why we have these classes. We don't want you to get in front of somebody and go, well, cause that's what you do. And you know, still sometimes you get stuck. But that's how we do that. So that's where we would ask in that particular spot, that's where we would ask for our compensation. Okay. Other provisions is where we're going to ask for anything else in the agreement. Any other contingencies that we're gonna put in there. A common one is, yeah, let's say we've got a military family, you're working with a military family and the husband is stationed somewhere else, but they're moving here and the wife comes in. And the husband's gonna be a week later. Well, you can write in there contingent upon husband viewing the property on this date, viewing and approving the property on this date. So that gives you kind of an out if,
He's like, this is horrible.
yeah, we can get out, right? I had one, just recently that was like that. It was the wife. We wrote it. I did a walkthrough with them, did a FaceTime thing and we wrote the offer. She said, well, I'm coming in for a job interview in a week on this date. And I said, so let's make it contingent on you viewing and approving. Walked in, her and her friend were there and she walked through it about a half an hour and she looked at me and she goes, I don't love it.
You're like, no.
And we got out of it, but I
Yeah.
mean, that was a contingency, the seller knew that could be a possibility. We even have the home inspection done. They paid for the home inspection, so they knew that there were certain things about the house that were an issue. One of them was the furnace, because it was a 40-year-old furnace. And they wouldn't give us a home warranty, they wouldn't do anything. So she said, with all that to be said, so we're gonna have to do a new furnace, we're gonna have to do some siding that was bad, they wouldn't fix anything. So we backed out and got something else. So. Okay, and then the next page, this is where we, put the date and the time. So this is a legal binding contract at this date and time. And then below that says this agreement shall expire upon, unless written acceptance or written counter is signed and delivered. So basically, we're saying, we're gonna give you till 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, or tomorrow evening, or 8 o'clock tonight, or. I usually do 24 hours. Unless it's a really hot property. If there's a lot of action on it, then I'll shorten that time. Okay.
That's what I was gonna say on the flip side, cause, sometimes when they're taking offers up until 5 PM, whatever, where would that be? But that's,
Well, if you saw on the MLS that,
not where it's gonna be,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. Or you're gonna call that agent. You're gonna call the agent and say, hey, Joe, I wanna show 123 Main Street. Hey, Will, yeah, that's great. We're accepting offers until 5 o'clock tonight. So if your client's interested, put a response time of.
so it's
6.
not, it's just on MLS or just, okay.
Yeah, so it might be on the MLS, it might be a verbal from the other agent,
Okay,
that kind of thing. If your client needs a really, quick response. That's just kind of, like if we showed a house here at 3 o'clock and they wanted a response by 8. I would call that other agent, say, hey, we're gonna write an offer. They would like a response by 8 tonight, is that okay, can you get that done? Most of the time, they're gonna say, yeah. We're gonna write a really good offer, but they need a response time, because they're heading out of town tomorrow and they wanna know they got a house, that kind of a thing. just, common courtesy call and being upfront and honest with the other agent goes a long ways. Okay? All right, and then of course you get, signatures. And then you turn it into the other agent. And everything is done on, used to be where we would physically take the offer and go to the other office and say, here you go, here's an offer. We don't do that anymore. Everything's emails. Make sure that you call the agent and say, hey, I just emailed you an offer, or text them at least. Just emailed you an offer. Can you confirm that you received it? Worst thing in the world is, as a listing agent, getting an offer on tonight at 7:00 and you don't realize it, and you get to the office at 9 and you open your email and there's an offer sitting there from 7:00 the night before, and they gave you till noon. That's not good. So make sure that you call the other agent, say, hey, I just sent you an offer, want to make sure you got it. That's with anything, counter offers, everything. Because if you just assume that they're gonna see it,
Yeah.
you're not. That just don't assume that, because we've had situations, not me, but we've had situations in the office where one of our agents sent a counter offer and didn't say anything. And the other agent didn't see it until after the expiration of it. That was a mess. I can't even remember how that turned out, but it wasn't good. And who's to blame? Maybe a little both. Probably our agent for not getting a hold of them. Or I can't even remember, maybe they did, maybe they sent them a text and they never got it. Oh, well, I was out of town, or, it's like,
Sometimes communication really does fail.
oh, yeah, it does.
Sometimes,
Yeah,
very infrequently, but sometimes something just doesn't get through.
yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it's not
It's
perfect.
probably better to follow up.
It's not perfect.